I think all of this really, I think part of the morning session was, all of these are tools, all of these are approaches, but it's driven by what's needed in your community, what's needed in your state. So let's approach, I think this is an important part of this 2-day workshop. What do you see as your learning needs for your community? And by learning, I don't mean just sort of an academic learning question. What do you want to change in your community? And how will the kinds of systems, either the community level or the state level or the national level, help you reach there? So let's approach it a little bit differently from originally planned. I think it's super critical that we don't have experts both within, leaders within, I think let's move from a spirit of leadership to a spirit of stewardship. So really in that sense, and so really let's take about 7 minutes in each of your tables, and folks who are sitting on, rather comfortably sitting on by the wall, please join a table, kind of stuff too. And it doesn't really matter if you're within Meghalaya, outside Meghalaya, whether you're with the World Bank or the Gates Foundation, I might just still come to you. So be on your toes. I'm going to be asking 3 questions within any tables. Some idea what your learning needs. Any thoughts on the kind of structure? See, learning it's really critical. As an evaluator, I thought when I do an evaluation, people are learning. It took me many years to realize evaluation is not the same thing as learning. For learning, you need an intentional structure with intentional processes. And then learning can happen by accident, but don't plan around that. You need to be a little bit more intentional around that. So 3 questions for every table. And I'm going to come first to the tables that we've not heard from. So I promise you that. And so number 1, and again, I still see not movements from certain sections of the folks close to the wall. So please, we are serious. Learning requires a little bit of seriousness, I think. It's not casual. And so 3 questions. What are your learning needs? What are structures? It could be you say, well, we need this office, an office of learning in the Ministry of Health, etc. But also, what are processes? At multiple points today, there were kind of some cool points made where, wouldn't it be great if every month we could hear about this? The other thing that came out was, as I was talking to Yvonne and talking to others today, actually we have lots of stories about local context. We'd love to be compiling them in a way that leads towards something systematic. That requires both a structure and a process. Okay, it's not just a research. So I think we need to move away from this grand researcher coming out and saying, I'd like to do a research project on your local context. No, that's not taking ownership. It's really your story. Let's try to build systems around that itself. 3 questions. You've got about 7 to 8 minutes, and I'll be coming to at least 5 tables in a random way. 3 questions. What are your learning needs? What structures can help you support it? Related question, what processes need to be in place to make learnings happen? So you've got to talk it from a community point of view to say, in my community, these are some of the constraints I face, etc. So, okay. Okay, time's up. So we're going to have reporting back. I see this as a attempt to capture many different communities' voices, and I'm also a believer outsiders have a really important role to bring energy to such learning needs, etc. So there are 3 tables that are in the outsider zone: DMEO, World Bank, and I'm not sure what to label that table, Mohan and ECD, and Ian. Are you taking Ian as part of your ECD team? And so, Ian is ECD, I think you've just been recruited, Ian. So I'm actually, those 3 tables will have a minute, maximum of 1 minute for reporting back. The other 6 tables will have a maximum of 3 minutes to report back. And so I'm going to be counting. Mohan, I'm going to start with you. So you've got a minute. What do you see from an outside perspective as you've been keeping notes, etc.?
Hello.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Thanks, Sanjeev ji. So the three questions are very clear to me because I have been working in a community development project.
A little bit louder, Mohan. I can hear. Yeah.
I got good clarity on the three questions
Correct.
because I had been working in community development project. So the change, what you want to see, the change or the learning needs, that is the question number one.
Sure.
So the learning needs is that, ladies, that how we can unleash the potential of the community of each and every person whom we are working with. So how we can unleash, everybody, the belief is that everybody has got a latent potential. And how we can unleash, that is what we want to learn. And the second thing is, what is the structure? Because in the whole country, there are structures, community structures are created through the Rural Livelihood Mission. So here also, we have a structure called self-help groups. There are federations at village organizations, cluster level federations, and it is supported by the government. So it's a supportive institutions are there, already structures are there. And the third is, what is the process? The process, according to us and our experience, involves 3 L's. The 3 L's means leadership identification, leadership nurturing, and leadership multiplication.
And leadership?
Multiplication.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. There's not a question to you, but I want to, for the second question on structure, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying, and I'm not going to ask you, but I'm just, for the teams, you're saying we don't need additional structure. We've already got enough structure. My question, though, is how does that structure, in some sense, lead towards collaborative learning in some sense? And so I'm not, even though it sounds wonderful, so I'm not necessarily saying we have got a new departments or any departments of learning or anything, is what I'm saying, but I'm still wanting to push on the fact that is there some dropouts? Is there some, where we missing the mark on learning, etc. That's an important point. Let me come to the from within Meghalaya table. From here, table number 1.
All right, so we've deliberated on a few issues and we...
Can you hear him? Yeah, great. Okay.
It's okay, I think. So we sat amongst the group members and we deliberated on a few issues and we finally zeroed down on this aspect, that is, we need to put in place a proper monitoring and evaluation system in the departments. And however, we do need some of the skills to enhance our knowledge as well. And further, we should also go back to our mission and vision statement. I'm sure that not too many of the departments have a mission and vision statement. Right. Only a very few directorates and departments may have.
Lovely.
And that is keeping in mind while we evaluate our achievement or goals. And then the structure that we feel is required to have in place is probably to one of my colleagues had suggested is to have a gap analysis. Mm-hmm. And we need to have in place some of the parameters on which maybe we've heard some of the best practices from around the world.
Correct.
Yeah, and probably it's best if some of the best practices can be seen firsthand, have a field experience of how it is done. And then some of the process that's required to have in place is one is we need to have a performance management system to be put in place. And then we need to have, we need to inculcate in the minds of the officials to have a target setting focus. Also, we need to have a reference point. And then, of course, we discussed and we just asked ourselves during our appointment whether we had any terms of reference or not, whether our job profile is detailed or not in the job. Right. So that wasn't there. Okay. I'm sure that this can be, it's open to discussion, of course. And yes, again, the last thing we need is documentation. We feel that it's very important, and yeah.
Oh, these are really far-reaching points, Pratik. You're getting it all. I think I hope we can share this, by the way, with the. So I think it's a wonderful summary. Sampatji, for me, as I'm like, a clear recommendation is also coming out in terms of some kind of gap analysis that actually kind of then also looks at, is there something South Africa did, something Chile, whether we originally planned, etc., did? Again, all this can be done with zero cost, just sort of goodwill, etc. People are really dying to share their stories. So these are not consultancies and contracts and all that. These are people who really feel their life's work is to promote this kind of learning, etc. Okay, let me go to the table, this table here, Ram and company.
I mean, I'm speaking from my personal, writings. One thing is that in my job, where we shift drastically field from one place to another, the learning need what people like me or in that field would require is that what is the larger public policy at level, and what is the larger vision of the state in specific fields. Sometimes the policy exists, or sometimes it does not exist, or sometimes there is a national vision. If not, there is a state vision for a certain element, or certain things where there is no national vision, but there's a state vision. And this needs to be learned. And one thing the job is in civil service is a little exciting because you keep learning. That's a chance of learning is fantastic. But the structure need to support this learning is pretty, at the state level, I think in most states it's non-existent is what I think, because you don't have a ready-to-go institution where, okay, fine, I can't say if I was just telling, if I want to learn about forestry in Meghalaya, who do I go and meet for forest? I need to meet one person, okay, I can meet him once. But if I have to do, okay, a little bit into forestry for a week or 10 days, I want to learn what is the entire thing. There is not one to go to institution or a structure where we can actually access information. We might go and actually, strangely, we'll go and search about Meghalaya in Wikipedia. That is quite possible. That's a sad thing also. And who are the mentors? These fields, for example, health field should identify some mentors who have worked in health, who know about the idea, who can give the time and something to actually tell the people about what is the vision and what is this health department is doing. Then they can be induct this thing. That is not there. We are expecting the person who is implementing policy, preparing policy, to be also the mentor. That's not going to be very difficult. So that structure as a state, it's so important to have a structure for people to enable. Even suddenly someone wants to learn. Someone coming from field to secretariat, they have this problem. There is a fear of getting into that, because that's a different thing. There's a different thing. Will I be there and etc. Where do I fall back? There is no other option. And then the process, the system should be very encouraging towards learning. Someone says, I would like to go and study something in health sector and etc. What Dr. Vijay mentioned in the morning in terms of power of saying no, it was in our discussion, I had mentioned it. It's a very interesting, old book actually there, where everyone has a say of power of saying no in India. The power of saying yes is with very, very few people. It really has happened. So there is no, for example, someone sitting in a small LDA can say, no, you can't go for studying post-graduation from MBBS. He or she, the small undersecretary, has the power to say that. But the undersecretary cannot authorize. So that's a whole different game. So the learning process, the system has to be encouraging, and in terms of that, there has to be always a proactive push. This I learned from Singapore. They are very, very, if someone wants to go and learn from what is happening elsewhere, there is a system to do this automatically. So this thing, I think, from my perspective, public policy, but the structure need to be having an institutional setup. And in terms of system, there has to be a process which encourages this entire learning process.
So, sir, my name is Mary. We've just joined in the ECD mission, and my colleague and I, we were discussing with sir here also that at this level, maybe at this time frame, learning needs for us most probably to apply the knowledge that we've learned in the field to really see the outcome of the results that we've put in the effort, and the systems the processes that we like to see in place is a free flow of information, because there could be communication, but the communication would not be free flow in some cases. I could have been talking to you, but no information would have been processed. It would have not even been productive in that case. So free flow of information in a productive way, that will be one of the processes. And the transparency. And today we've really learned about autonomy. So autonomy in taking decision, respective to the context of that situation, that will be some of the processes. Yeah, thank you.
Great points. And Ram, I want to come back to your point about learning structure and the need to have access to structure. But I'm also looking at Sandra here. Your comment on memory. Too often, learning structures don't have memories. People leave, even at the Gates Foundation. I'm not really clear what our learning structures are. I'm not even clear, so I'm be blunt about it. Why should I be this? If you're speaking openly, I'm not really clear. You make investments, how it all adds up to a system of learning with memory, a structure of learning with memory. I think it's a hard problem, and I think it's something that we really have to take seriously as you envision the future. But I think I also want to learn from exemplars, and that's why your comment on positive deviance. It's really important, whatever they may be. Singapore is certainly not a positive deviance for many things, but for some things it is, and I think we need to learn from that. And I think South Africa came up. Let me go to the World Bank table, and Michael and others. There may be some issues that you may want to react to. Yeah.
I guess more tangentially related to structures. And I was just, for my sins at the World Bank, I've been part of a committee for the last few months trying to sort out how to add a knowledge imperative to our staff performance. Like you guys, I guess, all bank staff are evaluated every year. And that's usually a very idiosyncratic evaluation. There's a standard sort of structure, but that looks different depending on which part of the World Bank you are in. But as of next year, all World Bank staff are going to have to make a defensible declaration around how they have contributed to knowledge. Not just what they themselves have learnt as some nice addition to their own skill set, so to speak, but what they've done to advance learning in their particular field. And then it fell to me to say, what would that look like? And I said, not surprisingly, given what you've heard me say so far, get people to talk about what problems they've helped to solve, and on a pretty safe assumption that that's the knowledge that matters. That's the knowledge that counts, is the knowledge that solves problems, and get that to be the way things happen. If that sticks, I want to be optimistic that introducing that even as a bureaucratic imperative will somehow normalize the problem-solving aspect of knowledge across the bank. We'll see whether that happens. Maybe it'll die in committee, but I was just sharing with my colleagues that this is what's coming down the pike for us. So we've got to be in the knowledge creation business, whether we like it or not. And you can imagine that there'll be a lot of isomorphic mimicry going on there, lots of faking, declaring of knowledge advances that may not have actually been them. But if you got to start somewhere, and this looks like that's going to be that for us.
So this is a comment about the memory part of things, and how to foster stewardship in a pretty hierarchical structure like we have at the bank. And I was wondering if something like mentoring could help, because I see myself, having spent nearly 20 years at the bank, I actually spend a lot of my time in formal and informal mentoring. And it's a two-way learning experience, right? Because young people are much more aware of new questions, new techniques. And I have some of the institutional memory that I don't have, as an operational person, I don't have the time to write it, but I can pull from my memory, oh, this question, this is how we did it in this setting, and this worked, this didn't work. And then, the younger colleague can experiment in their in their space for decision, which might be more limited than mine, but because they get my support, it may expand a bit that space.
Sampaji, for me, I think thinking through, again, from a stewardship perspective, the mentoring comment, and the fact is you really have assembled already 45, 50 mentors here. And I think in a sense, any structure that more formally says that that leverages that. I think, Michael, your comment about what knowledge have you contributed to, or some version of that lately. I just want to add, sometimes, even in the foundation I work, sometimes I think we are too interested in answering that question in a reporting to Seattle kind of way, not in a way that forgetting that eventually your commitments have to be to the folks in UP and the folks in Bihar, etc. And I think there's slightly different knowledge structures, and I think we need to be slightly bulldogish about that, because I think you can create fairly obvious cut and paste solutions for the reporting Seattle word, so I think we need to be kind of slightly pushy about that. Let me go to this table.
No one, everyone's refusing, so I have to. So the learning needs is, I think we have put documentation of voice of, I would rather put it as stakeholders instead of people. Because when I say stakeholders, it can be our grassroots workers, it can be district officials, or it can be anyone. So that is very important. And we need M&E. We have felt that M&E is a must during the implementation of any process. And the structure is, what we felt is that we don't have the M&E tools. We implement, but we don't. We don't know how to go about because we don't have the tools. So, and in structure, we've even added that, as Madam has said about the mentoring, we need a mentors, and that mentoring teams, those M&E tools can be used by the implementers also, then the third party, during the implementation phase. Then we know where and what went wrong in the cycle, so that we can be redesigned. The processes are trainings and workshops on continued learning, intersectoral and interdepartmental convergence, and reviews, so that whatever we are achieving, the goal is reached or not. And to come up with the gaps in those reviews, so that gaps can be again taken to the policy planning and redesigning. So that is from our side.
No, really critical points. I just want to stress on the M&E tools part and basically connect to the structure part. In many ways, in my view, DMEO is working on really how can state-level capacities for M&E and an evaluation culture be built. And I think if you crack that puzzle, that's going to be, and with a partner like DMEO, you're not just cracking a Meghalaya problem. By the way, if Ian Goldman was here, you'd say that's something they've struggled with. But I think that's a really important part, but I'm also stressing that there's also a lot of learning you can take in terms of what they've already learning. They just finished a detailed diagnostics of what different states are doing. So, there are exemplary states, but I think I'm really keen to build on these ideas. There's lots of, in some ways, Arunji, there's a strategic plan is beginning to emerge here. So, all right, let me go to this table here.
So, what we have discussed among us of the table 3. Firstly, my name is Ferdinand Basan. I'm also the Additional Deputy Commissioner here in Shillong. From what we understand, the first question, what are your learning needs? So we have a broad spectrum of officers here, and we have identified that there's always a model for each and every department, that whatever department is holding, whether social welfare, whether education, whether MSRLS, or whether us from the administration. So once we identify what is the model, it can be any model. It can be related to health. It can be related to social welfare, whatever model it is. Then, once we have identified that model, what structure we need, what processes do you need to be in place? So this is one of the key factors which I think we have discussed among us. And there are many underlying factors which, especially in a government setup, different structures are available for different kinds of implementation for any model that we choose. So most importantly, what we have identified is that I need to identify especially what are the systems that could be in place for identification, for implementation of these models. So it can be a very simple as a logistical support, which we find it here, which we have discussed, that different terrains, different places, different geographical locations have different ways of being, we have different challenges that we require. Then we have another simple thing like administration. How is administration done from the top to the bottom to the grassroots level? Then the third thing, the most important thing, again, financial implementation at every level, like we have discussed. And for the last question, which we have, which you spoke about, what structures need to support your learning needs? For us, for us as departments, as communities, what we need is that at every level, especially at the implementation level, the community, that is whatever community we are trying to reach, whether it's through the education community or the rural development community or the social welfare community, then the different departments which are in convergence together, different, like we are sitting here right now, we're discussing about a theme, we have to be on board together. The political institutions, whether it's the traditional institutions at the village level or the institutions at the state level, and most importantly, the ability of all these parameters to come together, and at the end of it, the monitoring and evaluation, which we have seen whether the model has been successful or not, whatever model that may be. So this is from our team.
I also see towards the last part of this idea of a collective action. It's not just, and how does sort of you build the energy of a larger collective itself. I also want to come back to the earlier comment about, I like the fact, Arun, that your comment on mission has resonated as much. And I think it's very critical because it comes back to the fundamental focus on purpose. And I think this idea that let's not, and I'm glad Ian Goldman pushed us hard on all the costs of rushing. He didn't let us off easy, by the way, because there were a lot of kind of fairly soft answers initially. And I think he really kept pushing. And I think if we are serious about it, I think that's the problem you got to change, because that's the need for producing something for day after tomorrow is going to always be there. But how are you going to work around that becomes quite important. All right, let me come to this table, please.
Yeah. So our table 2, when we look at the discussion that we have had, we feel that we hunger more for learning. So we didn't even get time to discuss properly about the structure and the processes. Yeah. So, and most of the time, the active participants from this group is from the health department and from the social welfare. So we thought of hijacking it from the rural development side now. So few of the issues that the learning needs that we would want to let you know we want to place now are the connecting the dots on the issues. As we go through the day, yesterday and today, we do realize that all the departments have more of a common goal, a shared goal. When we did the exercise on the health and MGNRG yesterday, we do realize that that through MGNREGA, we can somehow meet the roads, to construct a road and then take meet the need of the health, where bringing the pregnant women and all to other centers. And then we talk about the livelihood activities also. So we would want to understand more about the connecting the dots of all these issues and the other departments bringing together in one place. Another factor that one of our friends in the group has reflected is we need to have some kind of a robust structure where we want to implement, we want to do something in a particular area. So we want a structure to be put in place such that whoever comes after me would be able to see through that idea, that project that we wanted to get implemented, it sees the light of day and not just, that disappear. The third thing, one of our friends has mentioned is that the processes and the ideas that we have garnered through the day are good, very good in fact, but then it's a limited time and we do want to understand more if we go about the stewardship or the PDIA procedure. Myself personally, I've had a lot of experience under Sir Sampat Kumar, so yes, I'm quite okay with that. But then if we really want to take it to the next mile, we would want more on this. Another is on we do feel that there's a need for self-upgradation. no matter what has been given to us, I have a book here in my hand, but if I don't read, if I don't go through, if I don't understand, again, I would not be able to understand the process, and I would not be able to share to my colleagues, again, if I go down the line and to get the idea translated, especially at the grassroots level, which is the community that we are looking at, that we focus. Everything that we are talking about here is, in fact, for the community, for them. And lastly, the learning needs. When we talk about monitoring and evaluation, this is my personal experience. We have a monitoring tool designed for MG and REGA. And based on that monitoring tool that we have designed, we are able to say whether a work has been implemented successfully, satisfactory or not, whether it deviates from the plan and estimate or not. But then it ends there. You know, it's a linear approach. We don't have question like what more can be done or what could have been done. Those are, in fact, more if we can look at. So that is the learning need, and I'll hand over to my friend for the structure and process.
Thank you, Mike. So actually, the idea of hijacking was both of us, so we have to share as a collaborator. So, thank you very much. Before I put my points regarding structure and process, I do want to reflect my learning actually at this day 1, day 2. Thanks to Sir Sampath sir for giving opportunity to me to attend this program, and thanks to all the resource person for enlightening me more of the subject that I haven't known before. Having said that thing, we learned much of this thing, how to identify the problem, the purpose of the organization, evolution and construction, reconstruction, the major changes, diagnose properly and all that. So many points we have come through this in day 2. And we think that, yes, when I reflect that how I was walking and what is my future step after this workshop, is there's any change in me? So I was just reflecting the whole day. Then I was thinking that, let me reflect back to my career. And I've been going all this process. And one thing very interesting is that whenever I go to any block, actually in the rural development, I do create data, or self-data myself. I feel, I make comfortable myself that this data is in my bag. And with this data, available data, I work in. Because usually in rural development, when I go and see the data, it's the census 2010 available. And after that, the property, the BPL, the person, the number of households exists the same. But the dynamic figure is not there. So to have the dynamic figure, I create my own data. I ask my GS on the field level, you go and do resurvey. The same process, but I will have a new live dynamic data. This thing I have learned, a very, very, very rare source. I happened to be in the police department for a short while. And, when I go to Thana when there was an election, I asked Thana, that is an order we have to do. There's no, sir, this is already available, the data is available. I was so shocked, how you made this data. So there is in every Thana, there is a crime, village crime book note. And they call us, sir, VCB and hai to Thana mein. And that was, I was thinking, what's that? I opened. So it is a data, like, the hierarchy, the legacy the British has given to us, that we have to give due respect to British. It was during the British time. And when I have to give a notice during election time, there's all these criminals, and the police thana will just take out the name. So these are the 10 people, the crime they have done last year. We just summon to them and bring them and ask them, you book them in the section, no need to do any field work. So that was a very shortcut, and that existing the crime book data really made me as a rural development officer, when John is a video, why not I have the same data book? And during COVID time, Sir Sampath has seen that. We are the first block to implement, the control room. And in control room, I have got all the data of created admin, secretary, the village organization, even the individuals. And I know that for the individuals, who has the poorest of the poor, and I can know who has got the household or not. So this data was the main, still exists in as a strength. So what I say is that overall the policy, the frame rule work that has been the policies in the central level and the micro level, what I see is a socio-economic development overall. Right from the independence, we have seen the Swaraj. What Gandhi has coined us, the Mahatma Gandhi, has said that India cannot develop with the village being developed, rural development. Swaraj is self-reliant, and the self-reliance is the self-empowerment. So now NRLM has brought the self-empowerment to the women group. This is the part to the Swaraj. So I think we have learned so many years, like from Green Revolution, what is the good? From starving nation, we have exporting nation. But what is the side effect? It was the health of the soil, ultimately. So the Green Revolution brought revolution to the socio-economic development, but took our environment, ecology, right? So what happened is that now came the organic. Are they stakeholder to buy the organic? So let's take the example of Sri Lanka. What happened to organic nation? We took an example few months back. Now it's one of the economic disaster happened. So you think there are lots of things we know every day. It's a learning process, but the source. So I won't take a long time, but I found yesterday one of the speakers from Niti Aayog showed me this slide, and they were talking about this thing about the data and reflecting the point we have seen the geospatial, right? Geospatial. This is a tool I think our public servant is missing in our day-to-day exercise in the planning process. And I tell the obligation was one of my part, and recently, look, I've been in the field so many years, I find that still something is missing in me as a rural development officer. Then suddenly I've gone through one of the officers, then by chance, I have online, I've registered a post-graduation in rural development, and so many things I learned myself. Why I learn is that not to go for promotion, just of the jealous that somebody to subordinate, I have to beg his door every day. Have you done this thing? No, sir, because I was missing a GIS. There's monitoring tool, there's existing technology. I think every planner, like any officers like planning, I think they should have these tools. And we have to update technology also, sir. And our entry level is a very different level, and such workshop will really help us. So we'll coming back to the point, sir, like structure. I don't want being, yes, sir. Being in the government at the micro level, I wouldn't say that I was going to change the structure. I wouldn't lie you. At the best level, I will try to improve the existing structure with the existing modern technology and tools. Yes, for the processes, a proper planning is needed, a monitoring tool, evaluation is needed, and replan after evaluation. That's the thing I like to highlight personally. Yeah. Yeah, replan, yes. And the foremost thing is to take the view of expert and from the higher authority. That autonomy is sometimes, is a devil in disguise. I think that takes it. So that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Let's react to two. There were at least 12 points I can react to, but I'll react to two. And so a question I have for people in the room, and not right now, but as we summarize, I'll be coming to a couple of you. Do you have models of either departments, where there's different departments within a state that have actually learned well together, or at the World Bank level, organizations within a country, etc., that's worked rather well together? Because working in a foundation, I have not found good models where we work that well with a UNICEF, etc. In terms, we have webinars together, etc. But I think that's a little shallow as a model of collaborative learning itself. So I'm keen to pose that question. A second that's entirely in the realm of you can do it tomorrow is the spatial part. I think it's a very concrete suggestion. It's something DMEO I know is already working on. But I think I want to go beyond that. It's not just a data problem, it's a learning problem. How do you bring spatialness? Yvonne's point yesterday about local context was also spatial. It was not just local context, it was spatial distance and the problems of access just by location itself. But actually building a knowledge of learning that's spatially referenced. That's something I happen to know about. There are organizations that do that. I think it's not an expensive proposition necessarily, but it really starts contextualizing knowledge, moving away from grand views of this worked and that worked towards, so these are very practical suggestions itself. Let me go to the DMU table and then I'll finally wind up with this table here. Everybody has, this is a democratic process. Okay.
I'm only thinking that, I'm cutting into my presentation time, so. Nevertheless. Yeah, no, but I'm sure Sanjeev wants to sum up once again. And so I am quite sure that, in fact, I just want to say what I was going to say over there. And that is that Sanjeev was very right. This is the most important and lively half an hour of these 2 days. And to listen to your voices is what, I thought I was here for the 2 days. And it was great to observe, just to be part of this process. To the questions, I don't have any short answers. So it'll take me very long, and I don't want to eat into, the closing time. But all the same, as for the learning needs, what would be a short answer? I had one little while back, but I just lost it, because there were some very good interventions. For the learning needs, I would think how to make it simple. That would be my learning need. What structures do we need to support it? What makes communication possible all across? That is the structure I need. I'm not so particular about the structure as long as the communication can be taken care of. If there is transparency, if there is accessibility to the information that I need for what I need to do, I'll be happy with whatever structure you give me. And so the processes, well, the processes should be what is possible in today's context with what today's technology allows you to do. At the same time, making very sure that we don't lose out the importance of the individual who is taking all the knowledge that you are sharing with him or her, with them. Yeah. So when we say that, what I would think we should do is all these structured knowledge, just keep it somewhere. Let me access it at my comfort. What do you want to give me at a particular point of time? This is the work I want to do today, or maybe tomorrow. Can you tell me something about it today evening? Can I access it somewhere? So that, I can use that knowledge for my work the next day. Is that possible? It is possible today. There is Mission Karma Yogi, there is IGOT, and, all of this vision in the pipeline with all very well thought out processes inside. Work in progress, but I would really want to see Meghalaya take a lead in that process and become, the champion of experiential learning, making it available just at the time that I need it as a learner, as a doer, as an implementer of that program for that day. Be it what it is, whether it is about vaccination, it is about, a new way of teaching, it is about whatever it is, right? So that's my rather long answers now, so thank you.
This is terrific, Shailendra. I just want to embarrass you a little bit by saying I've worked in the US, Canada, and the UK, and I have not seen a national level leader who cares so much about, either in the Canadian case, province, and in the US case, state, in the Indian case, state, capacity building. So that as we seek models of national and state collaborations, I think people matter. And I think I'm just delighted to see your enthusiasm for this endeavor, and also a recognition that it matters. So that's genuinely exciting. I also think your call to keep things simple. The way Google works is keeping things simple. The complexity is all hidden away, and I think there's something to be learned from something like that. The final table, let's come here, and then we'll go to the next steps.
Thank you. I have been designated to speak on behalf of the group. So we have had a lot of eloquent speakers, so it'll be a tough act to follow. However, for the first question, which is, what are your learning needs? We have all agreed, the gist of our discussion is that we first need to unlearn to start learning. And for that process, I think self-awareness is very important. Your emotional intelligence is also key. And then Sir Sampath has given a very nice metaphor of what are your learning needs. He gave an example of a footballer. So when you're in the football field, you're not able to see what you're doing wrong or where you need to correct yourself. But when you are able to, when you see it from the outside of the stadium or within the galleries of the stadium, they will be able to point out where you're going wrong. So what it means is that we have to be able to look at ourselves objectively, what we're doing, where we need to correct, and where we need to rectify our, things that we're doing wrong. So this is basically what we have discussed as a group. And for what are the structures? I think whatever structures that are in place, that structure has to be adaptable, it has to be flexible, and it has to be a structure that allows for communication. So any structures that are in place, we have discussed that there are various structures like the monitoring and evaluation, the PDIA, or as Sir has mentioned, that we can encourage everyone to go to the field visits to learn more. But whatever the structures are, as I've mentioned, these are the things that need to be there in the structures. And the processes, the process that needs to be in place, it's a process that has human factor. it needs to encourage involvement and listening, etc. So I think that's basically what we have discussed in the group, and I believe if they want to add more, they can add. Yeah, and this madam here, doctor, she wants exposure trips also. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, we've got a really wide range of feedback, and I think, as I said, Pratik, please do share it with everybody. I think a broader plan is arrived at. I think it's really critical, and it's a comment I think one of these two tables made. Events like this generate fantastic momentum, knowledge, connections, goodwill, but they fail if it's an event. It needs to be part of a larger process. And it's really critical. I've really been part of many processes where, oh God, it was great fun, but I am so tired. I don't want to think about this for the next year or two. And then life happens, and there goes the memory. So it's super critical. The success of this event is defined not by how much we learned, by what follows next.